What's going on, everyone? This is Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com, back with another episode of the North American Weed Tour podcast, the fourth episode of the day. I'm stoked. I'm juiced. Back in the mix, back in the studio. Got a special guest today, Pablo Ramirez of Trippy Hippie Cannabis in Bellingham, Washington. How you doing today, Pablo?
I'm doing good, Mitch. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on here. We were chopping it up quite a while behind before we got started, man. So I had to put the brakes on it and move it on air, man. But before we pick up the conversation we were just having, every guest I have come on here, I always kick it off with their origin story with the plant. So whether that's personal, professional, a little bit of both, whatever you feel vulnerable in sharing. I'm just curious, kind of when you and cannabis started your relationship together.
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely started in the earlier years, but I got into selling cars after doing the lot attendant gig for about 3 years, and you know, enjoyed working with people, but was just hating the stress of it. The aspect of being a car salesman. And then yeah, I had a buddy that was working at a dispensary here in Bellingham. I was working at a car detailing shop, and he was just like, "Hey, man, you should come check it out, put in a resume. It's a pretty cool job, some nice perks and stuff." And yeah, 7.5 years later, I'm still, enjoying it. It's a fun thing. Just, yeah, selling weed and educating people, a lot of great products out too. So it's fun, man. I just like it. Try to be a chill guy, and cannabis does the job when it comes to music and chilling with people and stuff. So
Yeah, chill is not something that you would associate, like you said, the car salesman, right? Like that's
yeah,
definitely one of those areas that is, uh, you know, uh, people tend to be a little bit more aggressive, right? But understandingly, the putting the food on the table is dependent on getting the sales in that industry. It's not like people are slimy by choice. It's just that's how
yeah,
you make your bread
yeah.
is
It's just,
hustling, and the way you
yep.
hustle is to sell, and so it's a little bit more sales forward. Whereas you said, like cannabis is much more chill, a lot different, and definitely like I've already could tell from our conversation before we started, a lot of it's rooted in educating, answering questions, asking questions, and listening to what people are saying.
Yeah, yeah. I like to always tell at the shop, I like to say we spread the green gospel, educating and giving good experiences when you step through the door.
And then what is like, obviously I live in Washington, so I have some insight, but for the audience out there, I'm just kind of curious your thoughts, like a quick snapshot overview of the Washington market is in general, right? Like I know nationally the conversation is like THC really rules, right? Like most consumers are looking for high THC and
Right.
price or value. I tend to think personally in the Washington market, the top shelf consumer, and from my perspective, and I'm not in it the way you're in it, but the top shelf consumer seems to care less about THC in Washington, which I think is kind of unique compared to other markets. But that lower shelf or that mid shelf person, like that THC
Yeah.
percentage really runs it. Is that kind of true, or what are you seeing in those
Yeah.
regards?
Yeah, you definitely do have some people who like those high numbers, and you do see them, but it is interesting where people just kind of come in asking for like the look of the bud. Price points are definitely a big thing, but it is interesting seeing that change of. I remember when I first started, everyone's walking through the door. What do I got at 30% THC? I don't care about pricing, or like, hey, I just need top shelf. It's at a lower percentage. They don't care. And it's really everywhere, and that's what's nice is we have that option now where you can have lower end stuff, top end stuff, but the numbers have really just kind of mixed in nicely with all the product, if that kind of makes sense. Where
Mhm.
yeah, I get people from out of state, which is cool. They have different laws in their states possibly, and they want certain products at certain percentages. And it's hard to get a eighth that's coming in at like a 45 percentage of flour. I'm like, I got this 27 that's still really good, or the 28. um but yeah, I hope that kind of answered the
Yeah,
question.
yeah, definitely. It's something that the THC percentage definitely rules, but it's funny. They always say like as a market matures more, that should not matter as much. But when we look at like California, which even though our recreational market's been along or around a lot longer than California, I'll always say
Yeah,
California is the most mature market because cannabis has been normalized more so than other places and accessible more so than other places, I think, for the longest time. So I think the consumer there is a little bit more mature to brands and product types. You know, California is the mecca of cannabis, but I see down there the THC percentage. It doesn't matter what price point you're on the show. THC percentage like holds so much weight. Whereas everyone in the industry, it's like, I don't even look at, like I was telling you before, like when I buy cannabis, like please don't even fucking bring up THC percentage to me. I really could give a shit less if it's says 32 on the jar or says 16 on the jar. That shit really does not matter to me, because if I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that looks like some kill, and I got a budtender that I can trust, they know what they're knowing, and they say it's killed, that's good enough for me. I don't I don't
Well,
need
that's definitely the hard spot now, is, you know, is with it being so legal and so accessible, there's just so many more, I like to say, like weed connoisseurs. You know, we have our ways of liking, of choosing weed, and it blows my mind being in high school and, you know, hearing about like cannabis going medical in California and stuff like that. And now it's just seeing how it's nice that you have those options for it. Yeah. And edibles are nice. I'd wish we could get a little bit higher dosage for us here, but
yeah, we're definitely limited to the 100 milligram, which is cool, you know, cool for a single beverage or something. But I feel you, you know, I like, I'm not even, you know, for me personally, I don't even need 100 milligrams at a time, but I like to go buy, like when I'm in Oregon, I know you said you used to live there. I like to buy the 400 or 500 milligram syrups there, and like it'll just that little bottle will last me a while. I'm not downing the whole thing in one sitting, but it's not like I don't have to buy 3 100 milligram beverages to sit in my fridge. I can just buy one and hold on to it, you know, and get my right dose of my 40 milligrams in a really small dose. For customers and patients that are coming to the store, what are people asking for? Are people asking for strains? Are they asking for specific product types? Are they asking for specific brands? I'm sure it's kind of a combination of all three.
We definitely get brands. You know, there's definitely some brand culture fans that it's really nice. Strains are still a big one that I hear. And then experience. You know, I feel like at our shop, when we're in that first interaction, we try to ask like, what do you like? And then what are you going to go do? What do you do when you smoke it to kind of fine tune? Because, you know, when it comes to the certain strains, I just feel like there are certain strains that have been not having the same effect, or do they just get bred out? So it's kind of hard to be like, all right, let me try and find that like authentic Northern Lights. Let's say, you know, I got this one that's a Northern Lights number 5, and some customers are, you know, against that's a different look. Where, you know, I do that habit as well if it's a little bit different. But yeah, it is kind of, those are the things that I see pretty much, just the growers, certain vendors, and then certain strains are a big one that a lot of people kind of look for, which is fun too, because you get different age demographics and got everything from, you know, some 70-year-old person wanting like a green crack. They're talking about, I'm about to go kill it in pickleball, all the way down to like some, you know, 23, 24-year-old who's just like, I just need to relax. I'm trying to watch a movie or listen to some music tonight. So
yeah, and I think that's a unique thing that isn't talked about a lot in this industry, is like the consumer habits, right? Like you like what you like, or you have an experience with something and you want to replicate that. And it might be brand, right? You might be to that level of understanding and experimentation where you're like, okay, I like this brand, or I like certain things from this brand. I can put trust in that logo, that brand. But then there's also those people, and I hear it all the time, you know, I have the strains that I like, but you know, I like the new takes on it, right? Like I like OG Kush and I like Gelato, you know, the sherbs, but I like the new takes, the slight variations, the mixes. I'm always down to further explore that. But I'm a high end nerd. But when I'm in the dispensary, I definitely hear people are like, "What's wedding cake do you have at this percentage?" And like that's the fucking strain they want.
That is, and that's hard when you get those certain strains, because it's really hard to try and tell that customer or consumer that like, hey, just because you had it from this grower that we don't possibly carry this time or not have in, but we have the same strain, it might not be the same kind of high, you know. And I think that's one of the hardest things when a customer comes back, they're like, hey, this isn't, you know, what I wanted, didn't feel the same way. And it's that hard, like, yeah, I'm sorry, you know, just different cut, different feel for it. But, you know, yeah, it is. Wedding cake is a good one too. Sorry.
Yeah, that's definitely a strain that I feel like, I mean, it's super popular. Look at data. There's a lot of wedding cakes out there. Some people are like, oh, it's played out, we don't need any more. But there's still I'm sure there's customers coming in there asking for it. Do you feel like that? asking for a specific brand, do you feel like that shows up more in any category, whether it's just flower or concentrates or vape carts, or do you feel like that's kind of remains about the same consistency no matter what category a customer's looking at?
I'd say a little bit all over the board, but I definitely feel personally I see more of it when it comes to dabs right now.
Okay.
People are wanting certain dabs that, grower wise or vendor wise that look for. But yeah, that's what I would say right now.
What are some of the dabs that you feel like people are coming in and requesting by brand specifically?
Oh yeah, we've got Sub X subdivision up in our stores, really good. A lot of people get those scored. Has been
Mm,
doing a lot of amazing stuff. Gosh, who else has been running really good stuff? We got some constellations and some selects that have been really good. I mean, I feel like I'm seeing a lot more people coming in for rosins and like the diamonds and slushies. Just THCAs. But those companies, Oleum too. Oleum's been really good. um yeah, it's honestly too like the consistency. I notice a lot of consumers are liking that, regardless of saucy or more crumble, but just that like nicer amber look, lighter color to their dabs, or that rosin that like looks like sand pressed together,
mhm.
that light white beach sand pushed together. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I feel like, they call it weed porn when you look at it like on Instagram, but I feel like there's that thing in real life. I'm not a dabber, but you show me the right, consistency and color, and I'm just like, God, that looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, same. I mean, I used to dab and I was dabbing horribly. I was pretty embarrassed when my wife found out that I was dabbing wrong. I was heating the nail up till it was bright red, maybe waiting, God, 3, 5 seconds, and then taking the dab right there. So, I apologize to the listeners that are dabbers that are pulling their hair out. But yeah, it is nice when you see those nice dabs. I mean, same thing for people I know who dab and they see beautiful flower. We got these really nice magnifying glasses that with light so we can really show that stuff off. And when you see those crystals on the flower, man, or just that purple where it looks like a moon rock, it's some good stuff.
What are some of the questions you feel like consumers are asking? I mean, I know there's quite a bit, but what are some of the questions you feel like, patients and consumers come in and ask kind of like what are the most popular questions that you guys are getting asked on the floor?
A lot of it that I've been seeing is CBD stuff,
Hmm.
like tinctures or flour, yeah, that's kind of what I see a lot of, just people who are looking for that or just wanting that certain experience where they think that they're wanting a sativa, but then after talking for a little bit and, getting a smoke palette from them, let's say, you can find out like, oh, it's actually you're wanting this type of strain. So it's just yeah, like that CBD aspect and just looking to get a certain task done is what I'm finding customers are kind of asking for when it comes to certain products in specific.
Yeah.
Dabs though, they're just saying like what's the nicest looking dab right now? Like what's crystally? Edibles too, they're just like what tastes the best.
Hmm.
And that's the hardest part is, all of our edibles are pretty dang tasty and the things that people are doing with them are pretty damn amazing too.
Yeah, I found myself with that the other day, and it's very rarely happened because I usually have stay stocked up on snacks. But it was late at night, took a little, 20 milligrams of gummies, and I was like, that's about all that I need. I'm not trying to get too
Yeah.
high to go to sleep. I'll get groggy because it was late at
Right.
night. But I was like, man, these are smacking so much. It was the
Yeah.
first time I've ever really had where I was like, I ate more than I intended, but I like had to like cut myself off. I was just like, damn, this batch is good. And there, I'll plug them as the shameless plug. It was some wild edibles, man. I can't remember what
Somewhat.
exact flavor, but it was like the best. It was such a good gummy. Not even though it was a weed gummy, right? Couldn't
Yeah.
have no
Yeah.
weed. I
Just
would have ate
taste
a lot.
wise. Yeah, that's like we have these little shots, 100 milligrams, and I'll just take, like a half or a quarter of that, just mix it with a LaCroix or a juice, and it just like good mixture, it tastes really good. Tonic water is really good to mix it with too to make it like a soda
Hmm.
infused kind of.
What shots is that you're speaking of
Uh
specifically?
that's a Green Revolution shots.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty nice.
Okay, I haven't had neither. I just had the little Ray. Well, I've had a couple of them, but I just had a little Rays the other day. The
Oh yeah.
lemonade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with Rays too. Rays is really nice. They got some good flavor.
Yeah, I think they do a good job on their 100 milligram ones. 'Cause that's what I tell people when you're getting 100 milligram, especially in a shot, like to make it taste good, right? Like, and I mean good as in okay, there's not weed in this. Would I drink this? Right? Most
Right.
100 milligram small condensed things, you're not. It's not something you mean. There's no way you can put that much weed in it and have it be like, oh, this tastes amazing. There's no weed in it, right?
Yeah, this is a Kool-Aid shot I got right here. Yeah,
But
no.
I think they do a good job at having 100 milligrams and having it taste good, right? Good, right? It's not going to
Yeah.
be again. It's not going to be like my lemonade of choice without if it tasted the same and there was no weed in it. But I think they do a good job balancing THC and weed, which is a difficult thing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Their sour blue raspberry is probably one of my favorite beverage choices from them.
I haven't had. I'll have to try that, man. I'll be
Damn, it's coming. I'll hook it up, bro.
I'll be on the pineapple, man. I'll be on the
Yeah,
pineapple.
pineapple is good. Now, I haven't seen too many edibles on pineapple yet, drink wise
Yeah.
on my end.
Do you guys have the Pioneer Squares at your shop?
Oh yeah, man. Those hard candies in the middle, bro. They're too good.
That's my those Pioneer Squares, the watermelon kiwi or whatever one.
Yeah.
That's like the best edible I feel like in the country, man.
Oh
That
yeah.
is fire.
Consistency. I mean, it tastes unmatchable. It is a good taste.
Yeah, no, I've been working on that mentally. My list of the best tasting edibles around the map, and I'm like, I got to be. I'm not trying to be biased because it's from home, but that's got to be up there. And everyone that I'll see somebody, not even a big weed head, share it on Instagram, share the bag, and I'll be like, yeah, and everyone's like, yeah, bro, these are so good.
Right. Yeah, they are good, man.
They do a great job. So for you guys, like obviously, like you said, Sub-X is one of the main brands up there. They're obviously local to that area. Do you feel like consumers kind of care, like, hey, this is a brand also from our local area, or it just happens to be a brand that people like?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's just a brand that people like. Yeah, I mean, the local ones, it is nice when you have those certain customers who want to like buy local, and it is good, but yeah, not really too much difference from it. I think it's you always get that kind of that shock and awe when you get the new growers in, which has been nice too, because I know we've gotten some new ones. Fire Bros has been another good one up there, as Scored as well have been moving, and then Kush Kush is another local one that we got. That's they done it really good with their terpenes on that blueberry scone. It's got like that nice little blueberry undertone.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. I'm trying to think of the last strain I had. I did a review on it, and that was one of the random times I was telling you before this. I was like, I'm never really a regular customer, but I did. I was somewhere, had no weed on me, and just had to buy an eighth real quick. And it was the Budtender on that note had talked me into it, some Kush Kush, and I thought they were crazy for the price point. They were pretty solid, man, because it was I can't remember what it was. It was like 42 maybe or
Yeah, I think we got them at 40 right now.
40. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty frosty too. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other hard part is just with so much growth in cannabis, just learning how much body chemistry affects everyone. Like I have friends who love I-95 cookies. They're like, it's super stony. I'm passing out, but if I touch any cookies or Dutch Cross, I get so much anxiety. Can't go to sleep. It's like 5 a.m. I'm just staring at my clock.
I heard that from one of my, this is years ago, but we were at the studio and I had rolled up a blunt and my guy's like, is there any cookies in that? And I'm like, nah. And he's like, bro, he's like, no, this sounds hella weird. He's like, but I can't. He's like, it fucks with my head.
Yeah.
And that's funny. And then when you just said that, that reminded me of that. I'm like, damn, I don't. There's definitely strains like that. Like me is like the Jack Herrera, like JX11 or whatever
Oh
that.
yeah, X813s.
Yeah, J13. There you go. Those, like, I don't want any part of that, man. That shit makes my heart race. Like, I
See,
don't want.
that's what's funny too, Mitch, because those ones are like perfect for my body chemistry. Just super chill, super social. And then how do you do with green crack? Do you like the green crack strain?
You know what's crazy is like in the legal market, I don't know if I've ever bought it, but back in the day, I used to have a steady plug getting packs of green crack, and it was just the most vivid green color,
Yeah.
so flavorful. It was so flavorful. I sold a lot of it, and I really enjoyed it back then. But it's also like now is in legalization. It's like, bro, I've ran through so much green crack. Like, I don't
Right.
know, but I don't recall. But at the same time, I used to have a plug that got me Jack back in the day, and I don't ever remember being like, I don't like this. And now, you know, now that I'm fucking spoiled and my palate's been exposed, I'm like, I don't like that. Did I ever like
Yeah.
it? Or I don't know, you know?
Right. Yeah, that is the hard part with comparing to back in the day how it used to be, because I'm sure I'd smoked sativas and was completely fine. It's almost like almost want to say it feels like a placebo effect. You know, I
Mhm.
go into it thinking it's a sativa and it's been legal for so long that I know what sativas do that I kind of psych myself out of it.
That's
But I
that's
gotta get
facts.
stuff done.
And my guy was just saying it the other day because he was talking about Jack and he's like, "What, you don't like Jack?" And I was saying, "Oh, I used to." And he was saying he brought up something where he's like, "Maybe back in the day you didn't like it, but it was such a good flavor that you just associated that with like it was one of those weeds that every time I roll it up, I was like, damn, this tastes hella good.
Yeah,
It must be good weed." But obviously now, like I'm sure like the same thing, like you've been starving, you eat some food and you're like, "Oh, this is great, it's food." But once you're like, all right, now a buffet's in front of you and you can pick and choose what you like, then you're like,
yeah,
then you change up on it, you
yeah. A
know?
little different, a little different.
But we spoiled, you know, and in this day and age, there's just so many different flavors. There's so many different variations on these flavors. Um, what's your experience with like, you know, we were talking about a little bit before or a little bit earlier, we were talking about, you know, some people come in and ask for a specific strain and maybe you don't have, you know, it's like, have you had it varies brand to brand. It varies
Right.
batch to batch. How do you handle, right, like telling a consumer, you know, I guess there's two different sides of it, right? Like a Sub X grows kind of they add new flavors, but they have kind of a set menu. And
Mm,
it's not like it's ever they're a great brand. So it's not like it's ever bad, but
right.
sometimes it's like, yo, that batch isn't the best representation of what they can do. And then on the other adverse, it's like, yo, this is the one. Like buy two of them because you know. So how do you kind of approach that with consumers of kind of navigating like, you know, letting people know not that this isn't bad, but it's not the one. And then on the adverse of being like, yo, this is the one.
You know, I try and look at it as like my dealers back in the day that would spot me a dub and I'd give them an extra 20 is I want my customers to be happy when they come in. I want them to feel like they can trust me because at the end of the day, it's their experience that they're really getting. It's not me. You know, I'm trying to help them. So, you know, just asking them what did they like about it and just letting them know, hey, I enjoy this strain. This is from another grower. It's, you know, it might be a little bit different, but just going, I feel like when you go into new strains or different growers type of flower with the same strain, it makes me not so judgmental right off the bat. You know, when I know, okay, my bud tender explained to me these things, so I'm not going to be shocked if I get it and the high is the same, but the taste isn't there, and I might be maybe like the taste more than the high. um yeah, that's just the biggest thing, communication, man. It's a being in the retail side of cannabis, it's easier for me to do my job if you can ask me as many questions and not feel rushed, because I don't want you to feel rushed. And yeah, if we can just hash it out and I get an idea and stuff, you know, we can kind of give you that trust that I'm leading in the right way if something's a little different than what you were thinking, or a different batch hit different last time from that same grower. Just letting you know, hey, there are so many variables that come into play. You know, you just got to trust me if I'm saying this is the one, compared to trust you that, like, hey, this isn't the one, you know? Because yeah, I'd be mad if I spend X amount of money and my bud tender was just like, yeah, this is the bee's knees, man. This is the best stuff. And it's this different vibe from the batch this time, you know?
Yeah, no, and I like the, you know, obviously we are just talking about is like your body chemistry, right? Different strains affect different people, and that's one of the unique things about, you know, being that experience between the bud tender and the patient or the consumer, because it's not just finding what you like, you know, hey, you're a bud tender. I trust that you know what you're talking about. Show me some fire, right? And it's like you can show me what you think is fire. You could also show me what a lot of people are generally catering to, whether you're one of them or not. You can't deny we're like, all right, seems to be 80% of the people really like this shit. Whether I do or not, that doesn't
Right.
matter. That's where they like. But it is about understanding that person of like, what do they like? What are they looking for? Like you said, what is the experience that you're hoping this cannabis to experience, like um enhance or work with or work alongside the experience you're looking to have? What's your price point? What are the flavors that you like? Do you feel like consumers are in tune with I mean, obviously, like you said, they're in tune with strains, but are they in tune with like flavors? And is it easy to kind of guide them? Oh, you like this strain. This strain might be different, but it's a similar flavor. Do you feel like consumers are kind of open to that, or you feel like that's a hard push and they're just stuck in like the strain they want?
It's a little bit of a flip of the coin, age wise and everything. There's not one group or anything, but there are some people who, aren't wanting that different flavor. But there are some people who are cool with it. So it's just really, luck of the draw of who you got coming in. But that's the biggest thing too. If you can come back to the store and tell me that you didn't like what I recommended to you, as long as you're not yelling at me or anything, I'm happy with it. Cause now I know mentally when you come in, I've got lists that I can mentally check and know like, all right, Mitch doesn't like this strain. Last time I recommended to him, he said there was, might felt this way, but like this thing of it. I've smoked this. I know it might be similar, or my coworker smoked this and they said it was kind of like that high.
And how much do you do that with your coworkers when someone comes in and you're like, all right, whether it's a product category or a flavor that you're like, I don't really like the flavor that you're one, that's not like, I can't really speak to it because I don't like it.
Oh,
Is it a lot of tag teaming like, yo, grab Aaron over
honestly,
here, have her break it down?
yeah, I try to anytime I can. It's like I feel like that's what gives that good experience, is like I could be looking at dabs and I don't dab too much and be like, this looks good, it's at this point that you wanted. But my coworker could be behind me just going like this, like, no, not the good one. So, to get that best experience, we're a team, you do gotta use your abilities where they are needed. So if I got a coworker who can dab better, I listen a lot. I think that's good too. We all kind of listen and pick each other's mind and we'll make those references. But yeah, if I got someone who needs to dab, I'm definitely grabbing my good coworker to just be like, what are you smoking on? And let them know too. This is the dabber here, so I'm gonna have them help us if we're not busy and grab some good stuff. But yeah, as a bud tender, listening too. Like I don't dab, so I'm always listening to my dabbing bud tenders when they're selling to a customer, when they're buying something. I'm asking like, why do you like this type of thing?
And then what's your guys' you guys getting a demographic of like new consumers or those people that might have consumed back in the day but haven't for a while and are really getting introduced to this, to this new form, this new legalized cannabis in the first way? And what's kind of the approach in handling that consumer?
Yeah, I feel like they do feel overwhelmed, which makes sense. Like it's legal weed, so there's a lot more choices. But yeah, sometimes just feeling a little bit rushed and not knowing the questions to answer. But we're pretty good at letting them know right off the bat, like, okay, if you're doing an edible, we're not going to have you try an RSO, even though your friend said that might help you out. That's not going to be the best thing to try out. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit of an overwhelming. So just kind of being patient and taking that time and just kind of reading the customer and just knowing when they're open to like, hey, are you ready for a suggestion? Or, like we were saying about what are you wanting out of this first time experience? And just, yeah, just like when you're holding a new baby, I guess, you're just showing them kind of that world and just letting them know like, yo, there's a lot, but it's okay. Like we're going to get through this together and you're going to find something that works. And that's a benefit now too, to kind of calm them down. I feel like it's just letting them know, it's nice though. You have that opportunity. You can come in like you did right now and just ask these questions and we can try and find you something as close as possible.
Yeah, and we were talking about that a little bit beforehand. You were mentioning like when there's a line, sometimes when there's a line, you can just like sense a customer's like whether they don't know, they don't want to ask publicly in front of everyone, or they feel like they're holding up people behind them, or they feel like they're being a nuisance to you. They don't want to ask questions. Is it that approach is just kind of calming them down and letting them know, hey, ask away.
Yeah.
Don't feel rushed. Ask away. These people behind you can wait.
Yeah, for real. I feel, maybe it's a little closed minded, but I feel like most stoners are pretty chill. And when they see someone who's in that new role of enjoying cannabis, they're not trying to hassle them. So it is, yeah, just having that ability of calming them down, just letting them know like, yo, it's a line. I always tell them, hey, it's a pot shop. We're not like downtown or a crazy venue. We're chill people here in dispensaries. So by all means, just kick back and we'll try and do what we need to do. And that's a nice part too. A lot of customers, I think, in the 7.5 years, I've maybe seen 2 or 3 customers that were actually upset that we were taking a long time with some new customers. But every other person, I probably get 9 times out of 10 a customer who's in line that's like, hey, I'm sorry, I like this company. I was kind of overhearing. So that's kind of the nice part that I see a lot of, is that community of cannabis coming in and being like, yo, let me help you too, even though I'm behind you, just because I want you to enjoy your first experience, kind of thing.
Sharing them. And I like what you mentioned a question ago about, someone comes in and hasn't had experience with cannabis and wants the RSO, because that's something that, anyone obviously dealing with severe ailments or cancer scares, that's the one that gets recommended. But I also do know from myself recommending that to people. I remember telling a friend, he's a consumer, but very, very light. And I was like, yo, just put the tiniest little drop in what, I don't know, is that oatmeal or honey or whatever he
Yeah.
had. And he, he texted me like 3 hours later at work, and he was like, I'm so fucking high right now, bro. You said a tiny drop. And I was like, I mean, I meant tiny, bro. I wasn't there to like watch you apply it, but it's,
Yeah.
you don't want a lot, man.
We say like a rice grain amount for a first time. And if it's a THC based RSO, maybe even half of that. Cause yeah, I've been like your buddy. I did a dab, and I had a Skagit Organics RSO,
Mm.
and I accidentally pushed up too much. So I had about like this much, like 3 rice grains. That's all right. I'm dabbing on a hot nail constantly. Like, I'll take it. My wife came home and she was terrified. I was just dead on the couch, just a little bit too high, a little too high.
Yeah, I used to take RSO when I was working a regular job. I'd take RSO sometimes before work, and just a little bit, not anything where I really ever felt it, maybe light. And then I remember one morning I didn't, similar thing. I didn't take that much more than I took all, and I'm a heavy user. And it's not like I was blitzed, but I was definitely at work where I was like, in a meeting, and I was like, I am way too fucking high to be here right now. Like
Yeah, I'm feeling a
I
little
did not
some.
intend to get this high.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the biggest too thing just with those new consumers with like that RSO, is being like, well, maybe let's try an edible first. And yeah, trying those, because it is nice when you get those RSOs and you do need it. I got arthritis in my lower back, so sometimes that RSO just does a little bit more for me, that higher version of it.
Yeah, but you gotta be any of those edibles, man. You gotta be it's gotta be cautious. So for you guys is like consumer demographic, right? Like obviously, Bellingham is like a college town, but it's also got a
Mm.
pretty good local population. It's not quite tourist destination. I know in the winter people come up there to go to like Birch Bay or sorry, not the winter, the summer, and then obviously you
Yep.
guys are right there on the border um,
Yeah, we
by
got.
Vancouver.
Yep.
Are you guys seeing a lot of locals? Do you see tourists? Is it people coming from Canada? Is it just kind of a mix of people or?
We do get a lot, like when college season starts, we do see a lot of new customers in the summer leading to it. You get a lot of the parents coming in, which is kind of fun. Parents coming in with their kids. Oh yeah, we're just trying to shop around, find them a pot shop kind of thing. And a lot of Canadians too, which is pretty fun. We always love seeing our neighbors come down, but it is hard when you get that different sense of like, oh, we get this here and we don't have this there. But yeah, it's really everywhere. It's pretty nice. I had a buddy who asked me the same question at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's like, what age range, is it just these? And it's like, man, I got everything from my great grandma to like my cousin coming in who just turned 21. It's pretty nice too.
So you said parents come in with their kids and
Yeah.
helping them guide to find the local pot shop before
Yep.
school.
Yeah, it's pretty cool too. You get those old heads who are like, oh, they hear Blue Dream is a big one. I had someone in last week, and they're telling their kid, they're like, I used to love this strain. And the kid's face was just like shock and awe. Like, this is so cool, but this is a little real right now. But yeah, it's nice. It's good to see the kind of change of the stigma of cannabis.
Yeah, that's super funny, man. That's super. Back in the day, some of my friends I might have served their parents. Very few at the same time, man. Very, very few at the same time.
Oh yeah, my mom dealt for a little bit, and my buddy told me about it, and I didn't believe him. I was like, "Man, you're lying. My mom didn't sell you weed." And then, sure enough, my mom texted me like 20 minutes later, "Hey, just so you know, like if any of you and your friends need anything." Like, geez, I'm finding out from my buddy. Like, God.
That's funny, man. So for yourself personally, what are some I know you listed some of the brands that do well out there, but what are some of the brands and products that you're really digging that are in the shop right now?
Shoot, I've been on a big one for Fire Bros. I've been really digging their Danny DeWito and the Crepe Ape have been really nice. God, sativa wise, I mean, Kush Kush does a good Clementine. Fox just came out with the Tahitian orange. That's got that like great pungent orange taste to it in the back of the throat. It reminds me of like Sunny D, real good. Kush Kush too. I mean, honestly, I'm not really too much of a brand guy. I'll stick on a good strain if I like it, but it's just really the highs for me. You know, I'm a big indica guy. I got ADD, so if I can get anything to kind of chill me out when I get home, so my wife doesn't drive, I don't drive my wife crazy, I'll definitely try and smoke that. But yeah, those are pretty much in edible wise, man. Like we were talking about, Mitch, the Pioneer Squares, man. I'm definitely grabbing like 2 to 4 after every shift. So I go home and I can just kick it, take 2 or 4 of those, and I'm good for the night.
Yeah, I need talking about it. I might drive my ass to the dispensary and go buy some. I got hella edibles in here, but I have no Pioneer Squares in my possession right now, man. I gotta
Gotta
go.
get those watermelon kiwis, bro.
Dog, they're hitting, man. Awesome. Well, Pablo, I really appreciate you hopping on the podcast, breaking down what's going on, we're breaking down your journey into cannabis and what you're seeing on the ground floor out there in Bellingham on the dispensary. For people who want more information on Trippy Hippie, it's trippyhippiecannabis.com is the URL. Anything else you want to plug before we get you up out of here, man?
Yeah, man, we do 30% off all online orders. And I mean, shoot, if you're looking for a good experience, I like to say we spread the green gospel at our shop, just kind of chill bud tenders that just want to hook people up and pet friendly too, man. So you want some good vibes, come drop in at our store.
Hey, you heard what it is, man. This is the North American Weed Tour podcast. We're looking at the best in legal cannabis, adult use, recreational, medical, and a little bit of stuff that's out the system across the map, man. We will be back with more content next week. Well, we might be running some shows this weekend, but I don't run shows on the weekend, so I'll see you guys next week.